Do you know 50 years ago, hippopotamuses weren't living in America continent? They are living in Africa continent, so how to pass the Atlantic Ocean? Well, this is our today's topic to talk about before sleep, so get yourself over a comfortable bed. Turn your phone's volume a bit more, relax, and let's start our long real-life story. Do you know how many hippos are there in Colombia? Today, it is around 170. So, what do you think, guys, how many hours it takes a hippo to swim and cross Atlantic Ocean? No food if they didn't catch a fish while swimming, no rest if they didn't find an island during the trip to stay for a sleep, no any shark attacked them, how it is possible. Let's think Atlantic Ocean is 3,000 kilometers, 1,800 miles, narrowest if they want to cross from Guinea to Brazil. And hippos can swim 8 kilometers per hour or 5 miles per hour, so this means 375 hours, so it means 16 days day and night swim without a break. So how many sharks are there in the Atlantic Ocean? We know over 100 shark species are present, and maybe it is tens of thousands to millions of individual shark. So is it possible to survive 16 days and nights without any catch by a shark? I don't think so. Maybe sharks doesn't like the hippo meat, maybe hippo skin are so thick that even a shark cannot bite. You will be totally shocked when you learn the reality behind how hippos move to South America, therefore stay with me to end of the video. Let's deep dive one by one, every step of the amazing and boring geography world. Hippos across the Atlantic. Could it be really possible that Africa's river giants can reach South America under today's conditions? Just 1 second stop and imagine, standing on the western coast of Guinea country in Africa, looking to the horizon. The sunset sinking into the Atlantic, waves turn into orange, and behind you, a huge hippopotamus snorts. Get annoyed because of not entering into riverbank, due to it is crowded. Now let's change the photo and imagine that same hippo is not willing to turn back to river, but instead now it has a brilliant idea and looking west to the ocean that is more than 3,000 kilometers. 1,800 miles. Distance to Brazil coast and somehow ending up this dream in South America. I can hear you are saying that what an absurd, hilarious, and impossible to be real. Well, yet we don't know much about the issue, but let's trust to geography, slow down and ask careful questions and clear all the secret behind it. But first, we should allow a bit of scientific imagination because the idea becomes strangely fascinating. In this video, we will unlock the myth whether hippopotamuses could migrate from Africa to South America under modern-day conditions. We will look at what hippos are actually capable of, what they can face during this Atlantic Ocean trip. Is any similar move happened before, and which migration routes, natural, accidental, or human-assisted, might be an essential factor theoretically, to allow such an extraordinary journey. Also during the video, we will mention about the hard limits on this trip, from rare possibilities and science from playful speculation. Understanding the traveler. Do you know what a hippopotamus really is? I always think that hippopotamuses are mostly misunderstood. They look like massive, sluggish African animals, but most of their lives, they spend time inside water. Adult hippos can weigh around 2,000 kilograms, 4,400 pounds, making them the heaviest land mammals on our planet. Isn't it huge? So we are talking about a very big and heavy living. Beside their size, they absolutely love water, spending most of their daylight hours in order to keep cool and protect their sensitive skin from the effects of sun. So maybe now you imagine them like they are very familiar with swimming. However, hippos do not swim in the traditional sense, let's say. Their bodies are so dense that they immediately sink rather than float when they enter a deep river. Instead of paddling, they move by pushing off riverbeds, essentially galloping underwater. This should be working perfect in shallow lakes, but what about in deep ocean? Ding ding. We have a serious problem here. We don't know yet that this is an advantage or not. Hippos can hold their breath for up to 5 minutes or sometimes longer, and this is better than human. Due to they sink inside the water, They can walk along the bottom of rivers and cross rivers around several hundred meters wide, which takes not more than 5 minutes. They can even survive in salt water for short periods, but we are talking about salt water, and surviving in the open Atlantic, that's totally not the same. Big challenges. So before we start our long Atlantic Ocean cross adventure, we must ask a crucial question. What would the ocean demand of them? The Atlantic Ocean, a perfect barrier, which has full of challenges. The Atlantic Ocean between Africa and South America is vast. The narrowest cross between Guinea and Brazil. It spans around 3,000 kilometers, 1,800 miles. No stop and rest points in the middle of the ocean. The currents are strong, the waves are scary, and the depth for a hippo means a quick drop down and sink into an unknown hole. Here is a list of problems which a hippopotamus in the Atlantic Ocean would experience immediately. 1. Buoyancy. Hippos sink. There is no a solid bottom to push themselves against and still stay on the top. They wouldn't survive even 1 hour. Impossible for long periods of days. 2. Endurance. Let's accept somehow they manage to float, then what about maintaining position to Brazil against currents for days? They have no sense or experience similar before. 3. Hunger. Hippos eat, really eat. They eat grasses up to 40 kilograms, 90 pounds, every day. So where they will provide this huge food in the middle of the ocean? No way. 4. Exposure. Sun, waves, dehydration, and stress. I don't think they can manage it. Let's be logical. It is impossible. A hippopotamus can swim across the Atlantic Ocean. Not yesterday, not today, not tomorrow. But maybe they didn't swim. Maybe they found another way of migration. What could it be? Method 1. Direct ocean crossing. Why it won't work. Let's sum up the most absurd idea first. A hippo is not a superhero or an oversized Olympian swimming to cross from Africa to South America. Such seals, sharks, or whales, which swim in the oceans, they are evolved for this brutal environment. They have streamlined bodies, thick blubber for insulation, and efficient swimming mechanics. Which of them hippos have? None of them. They have a sensitive skin. Their movement is totally not appropriate for open and deep water, and they have no energy-saving mechanism. You think a hippo will float? Maybe yes, but a very short time. Their lungs provide some buoyancy. They will not stand against strong waves. High salt water would irritate their skin and eyes, and exhaustion would set in a short time. Without the opportunity to rest on a solid surface, no way a hippo can survive, even in day 1. Yes, we enjoyed while thinking this probability, a bit fun to imagine. Perhaps it would be a good cinema film, as a fiction maybe. Method 2. Stepping islands one by one. Nice try. In reality, there are some such migration routes, which some animals follow, based on island chains. For example, birds do it constantly. Even some mammals have used same way, finding some islands as stepping stones. Unfortunately for hippos, the Atlantic is not gentle about it, and doesn't offer much. Between Africa and South America, there are a few islands, such as Cape Verde or Ascension Island, but they are not in a position equally placed to form a continuous path. The distances between them are still hundreds or thousands of kilometers of open ocean. No way a hippo can reach even to one of them, so the same problem again and again. Without a series of shallow routes or frequent islands, which allows a hopping possible. Method 3. Riding the ocean on a natural raft. How it sounds interesting, right? In rare cases, large amount of vegetation, freely floating uprooted trees, soil, and plant forms can sometimes form a floating raft. In the past, it is known that these rafts have carried reptiles, birds, snakes, and insects across oceans. a logical accepted explanation for how certain animals transported to distant lands millions of years ago. How about a hippopotamus ride? Such a big raft. Under modern conditions, this is extremely unlikely, but not totally unimaginable. Maybe a baby hippo, not yet grown as adult, might, let's say, weigh a few hundred kilograms. A huge, very dense trees, which is a mat form that can carry a young hippo, in theory not impossible. And he was very lucky that strong currents carry it from Africa to Brazil. However, still these problems should be solved. Even young hippos need to eat constantly. Also, they will require fresh water. And think about these. No food and freshwater situation takes weeks. And the raft should be extremely durable to strong storms. I am putting this transport method in the theoretical okay, but fantastically no way category. I know it would be a great story to watch it, but nature does not often roll such perfect dice. Method 4. Assisted migration by human, accidental, or intentional. Ironically, the most realistic idea comes one step ahead, is that hippos could reach South America today, has nothing to do with swimming, walking, or flying. Humans love animals, not all the time pets, but also wild animals, so they might move animals across the planet all the time. Sometimes it is intentional big city zoos, private collectors, or volunteer programs. Sometimes accidentally, these animals escape from their cages during transport. Didn't you watch the famous film, Life of Pi, which tells the story of a Bengal tiger and a 16-year-old boy, Pi Patel? Their 227 days in the middle of the Pacific Ocean is a brilliant example of such a transport. If hippos were transported somehow, for example by a ship from Africa to South America, whether legally or illegally, they could cross the ocean. Also, this solution solves the other challenges like food and freshwater issues. Today, modern ships can store water and food. Once released or escaped, hippos would find a suitable rivers or lakes which can adapt and survive. This idea is rational and the most possible choice, but the question is who did it or why among many animals hippos are selected. Be patient, we will mention it very soon. Continents were together in the history. Some followers might wonder and ask, didn't Africa and South America used to be connected to each other? Yes, but that was over 100 million years ago. The evolution of hippopotamuses completed much later. Today, continents are in their current positions for a very long time, and this continental drift cannot explain a hippo migration 50 to 60 years ago. The Atlantic is a full-fledged ocean now. So this doesn't help us to make a logical explanation to form many strange animal distributions over the world, and no shortcut for hippos today. Even somehow hippos arrived to South America. Can they survive there? Interestingly, if hippos did manage to arrive, survival might not seem to be a problem. South America has vast river systems, warm climate, and rainforests. Looks like not a huge difference from the Africa. So the real barrier is not survival, it is the arrival. Final decision among options. Possible, impossible, or somewhere in between. Let's sum up briefly. Swimming, walking, or flying across the Atlantic. Not possible. Island hopping. No such formation as we know. Natural rafting. Theoretically possible, practically impossible with many problems. Mixed modern scenarios. Theoretically possible, practically only a dream. Human-assisted transport. Absolutely possible and the most logical. In today's world, a possible hippopotamus migration would be logically, somehow assisted from Africa to South America. And it is not a swim, not a raft. This story would be written only supported by the options of humans, ships, chance, and very unusual consequences. And perhaps that is the most interesting conclusion of all. Nature is powerful, but modern Earth is a shared stage, together with geography and human support. If a hippo ever gazes at a South American sunset, It won't be the conclusion of muscle, and will, but because of a miracle assistance touch. And somewhere there should be a very confused hippo, and might wonder how the rivers got large, the plants changed which it didn't see before, and the journey so strangely easy. But once a second stop, and think, even a trip without assistance happened, it would be a very bad travel plan. Somewhere on the western of Africa, a hippopotamus made a terrible trip choice. There is no predators behind. Enough greener grass for every hippos, but still staring at the Atlantic Ocean, with an unsupported confidence, like has never Googled the distance to South America. The water looks calm, the distance looks manageable, and the hippo, rely on its strength, but has no foresight ability, asks itself, how hard could it be? Simply very hard. If hippopotamuses attempted to cross the Atlantic today, by swimming, island hopping, or rafting, this would not be an epic adventure. It would look more like an unfortunate events, poor planning decisions, and the ocean will quietly shake its head. Let's examine what exactly hippos are going into. Plan A. Swimming, confidence without looking to map. The first 15 minutes. Optimism. First, things might seem fine. What could be the worst? The hippo enters the water, still touching to the surface. They may think it is similar to crossing rivers before. They are used to live with crocodiles. Surely Atlantic may be a bit larger than a river. Unfortunately, the Atlantic does not provide a riverbed. Hippos started sinking, and the depth doesn't help enough to jump upper. In rivers it was working, but it is not working now. In the open ocean, the bottom is thousands of meters below. Within minutes, the hippo realizes that this was the worst given decision. 5 minutes passed inside the ocean. No air left inside the lungs. Energy starts disappearing. Sharks. Say hi to the welcome committee. In deeper water, silhouettes attract attention. Are sharks like crocodiles? Sharks also will get surprised, because generally sharks don't hunt hippos, but they are famously curious and introducing themselves. A large, splashing, almost a round-shaped animal is basically a question mark for sharks. Sharks approach, circle, or investigate with a bite to taste. Even without serious injury, the stress level in hippos skyrockets. In African rivers, hippos are the danger to crocodiles. In the Atlantic, they are suddenly understood and realize that there is another boss at the top of the food chain. This is emotionally upsetting. Saltwater, like swimming on the desert. Hippo skin is sensitive. For very long trips, high dense saltwater can cause irritation, dryness, and discomfort. I sting and skin burns. Every wave makes the situation more harder. None of this kills the hippo immediately, but immediately they will understand that it is a poor plan. Plan B. Island hopping. Disappointment after hope. Spotting land. Yee-hoo. Joy begins. Do you think so? After days of struggling, imagine the hippo spotted the land. In the horizon. An island. Salvation. Finally they will rest, eat, and recharge. The hippo reaches shore and looks around. Where is the buffet? You cannot see an infinite grass source on most Atlantic islands. They are rocky and volcanic. Freshwater sources are limited. Grass is totally absent commonly. Then the pink dreams turn into nightmare. This island is not a stop point to eat. They are waiting rooms with no snacks. Hunger sets in quickly. Dehydration follows. The hippo now faces a choice between starving on land or returning to the ocean, which already proved unfriendly. Social problems on tiny islands. What about 10 hippos arrived? Could it be worse than to be alone? Hippos are social animals, but not on tiny places, because the resources are limited and they want to own their places, and this will start a conflict among hippos. An island that cannot support even one hippo definitely cannot support a group. Is island hopping a stepping stones or a stepping regrets? Plan C. Natural rafting, gambling with life, boarding the raft. Natural rafts, formed by trees and vegetation after floods, creating floating masses. Hippo should jump on them to take a ride. After a young hippo find itself on it, drifting out to sea, slowly realizing that the ground under its feet has opinions. The raft moves constantly, like it will be separated. Balance becomes a full-time job. Sleep becomes optional. Storms. That was not in the plan. The Atlantic is famous for weather that changes quickly. A calm day can turn into violent waves and strong winds in minutes. Storms are not polite to guests on itself floating. Waves crash over the raft and make it into pieces, and impossible to get them together again. At any moment, the hippo can find itself back into open water, which means sinking to die. Sun has no mercy. No shade, no mud, worse with salt water. Hippos rely on fresh water and mud like a 50-factor sun cream to protect their skin and regulate temperature. On a raft, there is no shade and no cooling. Days of direct sunlight means overheating and itches. Entering into water is not a solution, which means saying goodbye to get back on the raft. Even don't think about it. Bonus problems nobody asked for. Ocean currents which misdirect you. Ocean currents do not care where hippos want to go. You may think you are going to west, but the raft may be drifting north, or looping in wide circles. Who knows? That's all waste of time. No guarantee to arrive to South America on time. You can even end up somewhere which you didn't plan. Human trash. Today's problem. Floating plastic, fishing nets, aren't they a problem for every animal in the ocean? A hippo can caught in debris and suddenly could panic, trapped, or injure itself. A little chance, maybe predators get bored and leave you, but a trash does not get bored and swim away. Daily mood. The invisible enemy. Constant swinging on the raft, non-stop noise, hunger, and uncertainty in the middle of ocean will put a huge psychological stress on the animal. Stress weakens brain and increases doing poor decisions after and after. A stressed hippo is more likely to slip, fall, and this means to be lost or to be dinner for sharks. Reaching South America. Is the suffering ended? Even if a hippo somehow reaches to South America shores, the danger never ends at the shoreline. Unfamiliar diseases and human activity is kind of a new challenge for the hippos. The trip ended, but the survival still under risk. Arrival is not victory. It is just a new set of problems with better scenery. Final thoughts. The ocean always wins. Swimming demands endurance, and unfortunately hippos don't have. Island hopping is not a good idea without food and fresh water. Rafting sounds cool, but not sustainable with several difficulties. Sharks, hot sun, strong storms, stress, dense salt water. When all these factors work together, like a perfectly team, each of them making the situation worse and worse, until an endless journey. The idea of hippos crossing the Atlantic is amazing to imagine because sounds almost possible until you focus the details. Hippos are powerful, fearless, and dominant in the river systems, but the ocean easily breaks this confidence. If a hippopotamus ever gazes across a South American river, it will not be because of a world champion swimmer. It will be because humans or someone take it and bring it to South America. So our new question rises on the stage. Who did this migration possible? And why hippos? I will just say the name, and please don't get shocked. Are you ready? Surprise. He is Pablo Escobar. I can feel you are totally surprised when you heard the name. When I said his name, Pablo Escobar, you will immediately think different things out of hippos, whom lived in the late 20th century in Colombia. I will not go deep dive the life story of Escobar, yet this is not the topic of this video, but if you are interested to learn the details of him, Sure, you can search Google or watch the TV series about him. You will see the headlines and several documentaries about him, chapters of life, but our concern here is his extreme adore to animals. Giraffes, zebras, and hippopotamuses, resting in Colombian rivers, as they were always belonged there. This story is not about focusing on a man with what he did or didn't. This is about his obsession to create one of the most unusual private animal collections ever built in Latin America. And to build such a place using his wealth and power, an obsession with animals. Pablo Escobar had a deep interest in animals, but not pets. These are much a bit different. Large and exotic species. He was not hiding this fascination from anyone. It was something, a way expressing himself through scale. Animals which represent power, strength, and endurance, which perfectly aligned and matched with Escobar's personality and lifestyle. Unlike traditional collectors, Escobar did not limit himself to find animals which could adapt to the nature of Latin America. He looked for no limit. He especially sought rare species that were visually rare in Colombia and foreign to the environment. The more unusual the animal, the stronger this shows the statement he wanted to show. This strange interest eventually took place and turned into reality in the countryside of a city named Medellin. More than a village house, Hacienda Napoles is a place name at rural, which is 100 kilometers, 62 miles, east of Medellin. It was a vast property, almost thousands of hectares, designed to be extraordinary collections. You first realized it includes luxury homes, artificial lakes, artificial facilities, but then one thing took your attention, which is a private zoo. Don't think this zoo as a traditional one you may visit in cities. This exceptional facility has no educational signs, no ecological planning, and no concern if it may impact negative in the environment. Instead, animals were just placed in open areas, just closed with fenced zones, which reflects Escobar's personal preferences rather than animals' biological needs. Against all these disadvantages, many animals adapted to the village due to the warm climate and large space. Animals felt themselves free, not captured. Impossible is just a word in dictionaries. Transportation. Escobar used his wealth and money to import animals that had never existed in South America. After really complex logistics and long trips, these animals finally arrived into their new life via cargo planes and ships, often bypassing standard regulations. The process was extremely expensive, difficult, and risky, but this was an obsession for Escobar, and he followed every detail of the transportation and solved the problems, using his influence and sources to make it happen. Which huge animals did he bring from Africa? Elephants, rhinoceroses, giraffes, zebras, antelopes, and finally 4 hippopotamuses. Many of these animals lived together on the village, which seems like a Jurassic Park scenes which you cannot imagine they could be in Colombia, like an alternate version of Africa. Hippopotamuses, the cute guests. Okay, we counted many different animals, but out of all these animals at Hacienda Napoles, why we are focusing on hippopotamuses? The first reason is they became the most problematic ones. At the beginning, he imported only 4 hippos. When they arrived, he placed them in the artificial lakes and waterways inside the village. At first, they attracted attention. Very few people in Colombia had ever seen a hippopotamus in their life. What could be the worst? Nobody considered how hippos could adapt perfectly to Colombia's environment. Hippos and Colombia, a perfect match. Colombia's climate was remarkably a perfect place for hippopotamuses. The temperature was warm, rainfalls, and a well-organized river systems, which they were familiar in Africa. Additionally, these artificial river systems has 0 natural predators for them. In Africa, it is dangerous for young hippos due to lion and crocodile attacks. In the village, no lion, no crocodile. This made their population to increase steadily. Another advantage was hippos found the perfect place to feed on grasses at night and rest in water during the day. Looks like they won a lottery in Colombia. What happened after Escobar? Following Pablo Escobar's death, Hacienda Napoles was abandoned. For sure, many animals were moved to zoos or forced to relocate to wildlife facilities. Some were taken by government institutions, others transferred abroad. But the hippopotamuses, however, were largely left behind. And their number now was not like in the beginning. It was extremely difficult to transport, extremely expensive and dangerous. As a result, nobody managed such an animal crowd, and they remained on the property, and over time, their number gradually expanded, and many of them escaped to nearby rivers. Do they still alive in Colombia? Years later, when we come today, the babies of original hippos grew and still live in Colombia. They roam in rivers and lakes near Hacienda Napoles. Now, there is a unique debate in Colombia about their presence. On one hand, they are invasive species and consuming the sources affecting water quality, and even competing a threat to native animals. On the other hand, they have become an attention point in the local, and this tourist attraction brings money to the city. Scientists and politicians still discussing how to manage their population under control. What was the other exotic animal's fate? Well, hippos remained, but many was not lucky. Big cats and elephants were transferred to zoos. Zebras and antelopes were died due to unsuitable conditions. The village house itself eventually transformed. Today, there is a public theme park in Hacienda Napoles and operates like an educational site, conserving the history. The consequences. Pablo Escobar's animal collection was a personal interest, made possible by grand wealth and unchecked authority. And when the owner died, this doesn't mean the animals disappeared. The hippopotamuses of Colombia is a great living reminder of how human actions can conclude in such a result, still has effect on the natural world. Human power against nature. Pablo Escobar's private zoo was a symbol of wealth and its power. But nature does not work with humans' rules. The hippos adapted, reproduced, and start affecting their surroundings in ways no one was expected. Today, you don't see the big cats or giraffes or elephants roaming in the forests of Colombia. But the hippos remained, and their numbers are increasing day by day. They are not criminals. They are behaving their nature in the environment which is provided. And in that sense, they represent a modern and unusual in Colombia's history. When humans move nature across continents, nature doesn't ask permission before adapting. When Pablo Escobar died in 1993, all their properties were seized in overnight. And this means the same for their animals. But not all of them, like hippopotamuses. Still, debates and difficult questions are waiting to answer about the responsibility and the consequences of human actions. After Escobar's death, officers moved quickly to disassemble what they could in the village house. Exotic animals are given to zoos or moved to several wildlife facilities. Some animals didn't survive, but moving hippos are extremely complicated. Adults can weigh several tons and need specialized equipment to catch and lift, and this procedure has serious risks for both animal and humans. At the time, they were seen as harmless, and maybe the authorities didn't care what could be the results. It was a decision that would echo for decades. All in one place, the nature of Colombia was surprisingly welcoming to hippopotamuses. The climate in the Magdalena River was a perfect replica to Africa condition. Warm temperature, rainfalls, not fast-moving rivers, enough food, created an environment similar to their native habitat, where hippos could be happy and live forever. More importantly, you can't see any predators in Colombia, which is a crucial factor that could control the hippo population. So, no stress, no pressure for hippopotamuses. The hippos found safety, space, and food in abundance, all in one place. Reproduction. Finally, hippos found their favorite conditions to reproduce, and steadily their number increased. Females typically give birth every 3 years, and babies got a high survival rate when there are no predators around. In Colombia, survival rates were exceptionally high. Even little human interference didn't affect their survival rate. People are scared of getting close to one of them, even if it is a baby. This was an advantage for hippos to grow quietly. Over years, the expansion went largely. Some of them escaped to nearby rivers and wetlands. When started, it was a handful of animals. Over time, it became dozens. Should we worry about? As the population increased in time, local people began to encounter hippos more often. Sometimes farmers spotted them close to their houses, grazing at night. Fishermen noticed some changes in riverbanks, which they didn't see before. Tourists started sharing photos of these enormous animals near Colombia, and these photos immediately took attention over the country and took place on the news. At first, hippos became a symbol of Colombia. Some people tried to use it as an advantage, to shape their town to be an attraction point. However, the situation slowly turned into a serious concern. Don't think hippos are passive animals? They try to own their territorial with powerful instinct, and you cannot imagine how they are capable of causing serious harm if their territorial are threatened. As their numbers increased, we started hearing several dangerous encounters between hippos and humans. Impact on environment. Beyond safety concerns, scientists began warning us about the ecological effects of hippos on South America ecosystem. Eventually, hippos should consume large amounts of grass and spend much time in water. Their defecation decreased the nutrient levels in rivers and lakes, and now the rivers were not clean as they were before. Potentially it was affecting fish populations due to the issues like cyanobacteria and drop in water quality. Riverbanks weren't clean anymore, as they were. Native species in Colombia now start competing with hippos, which they weren't evolved beside them. New competition was for space and resources. While we still don't know the very long-term impact, but it is very clear that their presence is affecting today's ecosystem. What is the hippo growth speed today? All story started with 4 hippopotamuses. By 2007, the animals had multiplied to 16, and in 2014, it was reported to be 40 hippos. But it is counted in 2019, and it was 100 hippos. Estimation today is, in just a few decades, 10 baby hippos can be 100 adults. And in the next few decades, this uncontrolled reproduction can end in several hundreds. This rate of growth is today alarming because hippos are becoming harmful to ecosystems, which is finely balanced. And if this balance is once interrupted, then it can cause cascading effects that are difficult to reverse. The debate: what should we do? Managing the hippo population has become top topic today in South America wildlife. Discussion topics are: 1. Relocation. Moving hippos to a different place elsewhere is discussed. However, this operation is extremely expensive, logistically a difficult challenge, but not impossible, and who will take the responsibility to accept this operation? 2. Sterilization. Sterilization is another discussion topic, and it can be a long-term strategy. Also, by chemically preventing reproduction, authorities hope to stop the population growth without harming the animals. This approach has a cost again, and technically challenging. Approaching to each hippo is very dangerous. They are not small pets which you can vaccinate easily. 3. Do nothing. Some argue that goes around is hippos have already become a part of that ecosystem in South America, and we should left hippos alone. No need to worry for the future. But others strongly disagree this idea, pointing to long-term environmental risks. There is no a simple one solution, and each recommendation carries ethical, ecological, and financial considerations, public opinion, and global attention. So, over the discussions, what we have in our hands in final. 2 major opinion-divided scientists, and people working in the ecological areas. The first opinion is let hippos alone, because of they are unique features of the region. Touristic attraction bringing money to the local, and these animals have become a unique symbol of Colombia. The second opinion is rising from scientists who warn about letting them alone unmanaged can produce serious consequences. The future of Colombia. The future of Colombia's ecosystem depends on decisions made today. If no one will take action, their numbers will increase unmanaged and start putting pressure on the ecosystems. With a right decision, it may be possible to stop the population increase and reduce risks. What is certain is that these animals are living between us and will be present in the future. A legacy. So finally, before closing the video, I really want to say that the hippos are not villains. They are not steadily harm people, and even no death is reported till now. They are the victims, and they are the most innocent individuals in this story. They are just animals, and as natural, they are doing what animals do in daily life. They are trying to survive and reproduce, that's all. But in my opinion, today we talked about one of the strangest examples in geography which we cannot ignore. Thank you very much for listening and having me as a guest to your places. Take care of yourselves and stay in contact with the new videos from geography. And if you are curious about any topic from geography, please mention it in the comments and let's talk about it in near future. Bye!